Hi. Sorry. Hi.
How are you doing?
Can you hear me? Is
Yeah,
the
I hear you
sound
fine.
clear?
I hear you fine. Can you hear me
Yeah.
okay?
Yes, I can. Hey, John. How's it going?
Going okay. Not too bad.
Yeah, is
How
it
about
John? Yeah. Yeah,
John?
it's
Uh-huh.
John. Yeah,
And you
good. I'm
and
Jaffer.
Jaffer. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So, how are you, John?
I'm good. Doing okay. I I live in the United States in the kind of a countryside area, so it's pretty
Yeah.
slow. I mean, there's not a lot of action around here. So
Uh-huh.
the
So,
country.
you're far away from the city, like, city noise and stuff.
Yeah, the only thing that you hear tractors and trucks drive by, but that's about it.
But it's okay.
Yeah,
It's more
I
relaxing.
actually like living here. It's actually now it's really it's changing because of this. It's already has been changing for a while, but spring is it's really a nice
Mm-hmm.
spring. This season is really nice. It's turning green. Everything is green now. So
Ah, so it's spring there.
yeah,
I
springtime.
We are at the beginning of summer, so yeah, here. So why did you choose to live in countryside, not in city?
Well, I used to live in the city, actually. I lived in Japan for a long time. I moved. I'm from this area where I
Mhm.
am now, and I moved to Japan, and I was living there, and then I moved back here about a year and a half ago. I moved
Oh,
back.
good.
So that,
And I've read in your description that you spent 25 years in Japan, or
yeah,
maybe your video. I'm not sure if it's
yeah,
in your
yeah. I
description.
was in Japan for a long time. Yeah,
25 years. It's a long time.
it is a long
For
time.
sure, it was like a good experience.
Yeah, well, yeah. Time seems to go by really fast. Because my daughters were growing up and taking care of them, and now they're all growing up,
Hmm.
and so I don't know. Time goes by. It just goes
Yeah.
by. Yeah.
They were with you, your family, I mean. They were with you in Japan or they stayed in America
No,
till you came back?
they were born in Japan.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they're
So
all.
they are like Japanese.
No, actually, no. My wife is from the United States, so but they were born in Japan. My wife was living there
Maybe
before I went there. She was an exchange student, and she just stayed there.
exchange. Yeah, nice.
And then I was going back and forth, and finally I just said, well, I'll just move there. So I moved there too, and then we started having a family, and
Hmm. And how is Japan? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
well, it's a small country. And the population is fairly large for a small country like that. The
Hmm.
population hasn't changed much though since, because I remember checking the population when I first went to Japan. The first time I went was in 1992, and the
Hmm.
population was about
19.
120 million people, which is a big population for such a small country. And
Yeah.
today, the population is actually shrinking. I think it's like 110,000 or 110 million.
Ah,
So
so it's shrinking, it's going down,
yeah,
not up.
yeah. So because of the
Mm.
older population, they're dying off, and then the younger people are not having, our people are
Hmm.
not having a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So if not for the expatriates or foreigners living there, they probably would be even smaller, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen, a lot of Americans choose to go to Japan and spend the rest of their lives there, build their families, and, maybe marry to a Japanese,
Right.
partner
Yeah.
and choose to live there. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
I think Japan, the one thing about Japan is it has a lot of history. So you can spend your whole life just studying the history. Like a lot of people like dressing up in they're in the summertime,
Yeah.
it's called yukata. Yukata is it's not a kimono, but like a yukata. And they dress up it's like living that simple kind of life, I guess. But
Hmm.
not everybody has that kind of style Japanese house, because people in Japan, most people live in a small apartment. So
Yeah,
in the
I
cities, right?
see.
If you live in the countryside, though, you can find some old houses, and I think that's where the foreigners like living, in the old houses. So,
Hmm.
and they can find an old house somewhere. You can live in one of those pretty cheap, I think. So it's a
Yeah,
little bit,
maybe, yeah,
out of the
maybe
city.
the culture is attractive for foreigners to go and just live there.
Yeah, it's a whole different culture, and they like studying the language and they have the
Mm-hmm.
kanji from China, but they changed the meaning of it a little bit, and they have hiragana, katakana, and I know they people like that kind of thing. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wasn't so interested in and like Japanese food. I'm not really into the like raw fish. I don't like
Yeah.
raw fish so much. So
Yeah. Did you learn some Japanese? Can you speak a little Japanese or?
yeah, a little bit. I didn't really study Japanese while I was there. I was just too busy with the
Mm-hmm.
kids, and we used to go camping and stuff. And then I'm a writer. I write fiction. So I
Yeah.
was teaching
Yeah.
English and then writing, and so I didn't have a lot of time for studying. I didn't really. It wasn't a priority of mine because I was just with my daughters. My daughters learned they were speaking English first, and then they learned Japanese. So,
Mm-hmm.
but they're fluent, bilingual.
Yeah. Yeah. They was born there, so I think for them,
Yeah, they have a
it
lot of
was
friends.
easy to get the language.
Well, they have a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
friends that are
Of course,
mixed,
friends. Yeah.
Like there are a lot of Australians in Japan, and people from
Mm-hmm.
the United States and many countries, Europe, all over Canada, and yeah, they go to Japan and then they marry. Maybe they marry a Japanese either guy or girl, and then they have kids
Yeah.
there, and yeah, it's the way it is. So.
Yeah. I wish to go to Japan someday. I wanna, just go there and explore
It's a
and
safe
see
country.
how
One thing
people
about it,
live.
it's really safe. I mean, you can go anywhere and you don't have to worry about anything. And then the trains go all over the
Hmm.
place, so you can catch a train and go just about anywhere. You get into the countryside,
Yeah.
then maybe you need a car in the countryside, but trains and there are trains into the taxi system is expensive in Japan, so that's one thing they
Hmm.
don't have any Uber systems in Japan. I think it's
Hmm.
protecting the taxi business. I think that's what they're doing. So they
Ah,
don't
I
allow
see.
any Uber systems. You can't have a private
Yeah, we
taxi.
don't have an Uber system here. They tried to like establish a system like that here, but it didn't work because the taxis started to strike and say like,
Oh,
our business is, is I don't know, it's it's like competition. So if there is many Uber drivers, for them it's gonna be hard, to find clients, and many people are going to choose to just call an Uber,
right.
drive, and yeah, it's the same here. We don't have, an Uber
Yeah, I think in
business.
Japan too. Japan is they're like a conservative country, and so they like again with the safety thing, they like to be careful about everything. I mean, so like the taxi services, I
Hmm.
think they trust the actual taxi business. These people have they have taxi services, and they're like companies.
Hmm.
They trust them, I
Hmm.
think, more than they would like a single person driving a taxi. Or even with business, I think it's if you want to if a person wanted to start some kind of business in Japan, you almost have to do it with a
Hmm.
Japanese person. I think otherwise it's pretty hard to start some business
Yeah.
in Japan without that. I think you'd have to get some
Yeah.
connection in Japan. So
Yeah, I see.
yeah, but
Yeah, it's nice.
but it is comfortable living there. That's for sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah, but what about the cost of living? Is it expensive? You said that the taxi
no,
can be,
actually
expensive,
everything
but
else is
in
pretty.
general.
It's pretty reasonable. It's about the same as the United States, I think. Like, so if you live in
Mm-hmm.
a big apartment, it's going to cost more. Live in a small apartment, it's going to be cheaper. If you live in the countryside, it's going to be cheaper. The same. So
Mm-hmm. So it depends on what kind of life you choose to live,
if there are apartments that are really expensive, and if
Mm-hmm.
those are right in the downtown area, if you want to live there, of course you don't have to take a train anywhere because you're already downtown. So that's good. But
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
those apartments are, if it's a big apartment, it's probably expensive. I don't know how much they would cost, but
Mm-hmm.
if you buy it or rent it, but I was renting a house there I was
Yeah.
in a city called Nara, just outside
No,
Osaka,
no. Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of a rural area, and I was paying like $700 a month.
$700 a month. Is it like a big
Yeah, it
house?
was a two-story
A
house.
big apartment?
No, it was a house, two-story house. It
Uh-huh.
had actually a
Nice.
yard. It was pretty nice. So that's about
Mm,
the same as
nice.
in the United States, almost, I think.
Yeah. About the United States, you just have an idea. Maybe in some states, it's the rent price is too expensive than the others. It depends.
I think
in
the rent.
which
I think the rent.
position you are
Well,
in.
I think the rents. Why the rents are so. Even in small towns, rents is expensive. I think what
Hmm.
happened in the United States is like so. I think a lot of people got into the real estate or renting
Yeah,
business.
business.
They start a little. They buy an old house or they buy some
Hmm.
like a I don't know
Then they
duplex.
fix it.
They fix it up and
Hmm.
then rent it out,
Hmm.
right? And they rent it out, and to pay the mortgage, they have to charge a lot for the rent. So the renter,
Yeah, so they can pay the mortgage and save something for
well,
themselves.
if you pay the
They
well,
are paying like
I
greedy.
think that the people think, yeah, we can pay the mortgage off, and then after the mortgage is paid off, it's being paid off by the renter, and then
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then some people, like you said, they want a little bit more on the top, so we charge a little bit more, and we can get some money out of it too. And I think, but the problem with
yes,
that is there's a lot of competition for that now, and I think that rents are
yeah,
getting really high. And if you go to like bigger cities, it's cheaper to buy a house than it is to rent it. If you can get a
yeah. I
loan,
think,
if you can get a
yeah,
mortgage for a house, you can buy it and just pay the
mhm.
mortgage. And then why would you want to rent it? I mean, because you can sell the house, like, if you buy it. But if you're renting,
Yeah. If you buy it, then it's yours. You are paying like it's like paying the rent, but for your own house.
right?
You know what I mean?
Well, you can, there's you have to pay the maintenance and take care of it and all that stuff. But eventually, but if you
Yeah.
keep it for a
Hmm.
while,
Hmm.
here, usually in the U.S., in most cases, the land value goes up or the property value goes up.
Yeah.
So you end,
Hmm.
of course, inflation goes up too, but in the end, you could sell it and get something back. But if you rent,
Hmm.
you get nothing back.
Yeah. You're just throwing your money.
But you can move. The thing about renting is you can move quickly. If I want to just
Yeah.
pack up and leave, you can
You can.
leave.
Yeah.
If you're
You can move. And also, I think people just don't want to, to get loans from banks and
yeah,
stress themselves. So they prefer just to pay the
right,
rent than,
yeah. So it
I
depends.
think
Yeah,
it's tricky
yeah. Everybody
from
has.
a person to
I
another.
guess you weigh the good points and the bad points, and then you figure out this is. But for me, this is better for the whatever you want to
Hmm.
do. I guess.
Yeah, here it's the same. So if you wanna, you can rent an apartment, or maybe you can buy yours, take a loan
Where
from your
are
bank.
you?
I'm in Morocco. I live
Oh,
in Morocco.
Morocco. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's
Oh,
the same story.
right. And so I think they changed the process a little bit in the United States and probably other countries too. Since
Hmm.
in 2008 there was like that mortgage meltdown where they would a lot of the real estate there was a mortgage problem with a lot of people were paying mortgage or they bought a house or some property and they didn't have the money to pay the property back and so they couldn't
Hmm.
pay the bank, then the bank or the mortgage company couldn't pay the bank back, and it was just like a
Yeah.
domino effect.
Yeah.
And then so
Yes.
that happened. So that's that kind of problem. So I don't know. If you get into buying a house now, I think you have to. They were really easy with buying stuff before, but now I think if you want to buy something, you need a
Yeah.
down payment. You got
Yeah.
to have like 50,
Nowadays
50% of the
it's
value.
yeah, it's gets more it's more hard to to just take a loan and buy a house because also the banks are aware of this kind of activities,
Yeah,
so they are trying to 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 do something about it, just to limit it,
right.
put a limit to that
Well, you have to
practice
have a
so they
probably
can.
have to have a
Yeah.
deposit. They check a couple things here anyway. You
Yeah.
need a deposit, which
Mm-hmm.
is about 20% or
If you
50.
have a job.
You need a job because
Yeah.
you have to be able to pay the mortgage back. So those two things are the
In,
most important, and you have to have a good credit
yeah.
rating.
Insurance and stuff, I think
Well, if you get
also
if they
outcome.
give you the loan, then you have to get insurance. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's insured. And if if something happens, it's paid off. So that's good, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But there's taxes. You have to pay taxes, property taxes. So
Taxes, yeah.
there's a cost involved in buying a house. But if you buy it and you
Mhm.
rent it to somebody, you're getting your money out of it because the people renting it are paying for it, really. So that's a
Yeah.
business a lot of people get into. The problem is that some people start those
Yes. Mhm.
businesses and then they can't find anybody to rent it, or the renters destroy everything, or it's like
Yeah. Yeah, you just it has a lot of problems comes with this kind of with this business because
yeah,
people when they just rent a house, they say that I'm paying my money so I can do whatever I want with the house. They don't care about, they don't fix anything, so they just I don't know, they just destroy
Yeah.
stuff and destroy the house, so you have to fix it and pay more money to fix it and rent it to other people, you know. And I think you have to find the right people to rent from you.
They have a thing here, like there's a university in the bigger city.
Hmm.
There's a bigger city near here, and there's a university in there, a couple of
Hmm.
universities, and around those schools there are some houses, bigger houses, and
Yeah.
those people
Hmm.
people buy those houses and then they rent them to the students, right? And so if
Students,
it's a
yeah.
two-story house, it probably has like three bedrooms, right? And so they rent
Uh-huh.
each bedroom to a student, so they have three different students, they're roommates, right? And they share the kitchen, the
Mm.
living room, so you have to find three people. And so if you rent each room, they rent it so you can rent each room a little cheaper, but you need three people.
Hmm.
But if you only have one student in there, and then you don't have you still it's not enough to cover the mortgage,
Yeah.
right? So you got to pay that mortgage back. So you're always back to the mortgage,
Yeah.
always in the
Yeah, here it's different. So, for example, if there is a student coming to my city to study, and there is some kind of apartments, like you
yeah,
said, and the owner just say to the one who wants to rent, I'm gonna rent you, I'm gonna, rent my house with this price. Then it's for you to find someone to live with
yeah,
and help you.
right,
So he gave him a
yeah,
limit of 3 or 4 people to be in the house with
right.
him.
They do that
So
here too.
it's yeah. So the one who made the deal with the
Yeah,
owner is the one who needs to find the other people who's gonna live with him and pay the rent with him.
exactly. Yeah. So they do that here too. But now the problem with that is that this virus thing, people don't want to live with people they
Mm-hmm.
don't know who they are, and
Yeah.
you go live with
Mm-hmm.
some house somewhere, you're gonna get sick.
Maybe you just go back to their homes. I don't know if none of in America know because people are like independent after 18 years old,
Well,
so
not everybody.
you have to stay
Not
at their house.
everybody's independent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's become much harder nowadays.
yeah. Well, if you go to school here, if you go to a university, it's so expensive.
Hmm.
Everything it costs a lot of money to go to a school here. It's expensive unless you can get a grant, or if you're lucky, you get a scholarship. But you have to be either really smart or you have to have some talent in
Hmm.
sports. If you're good in sports, some kind of sports,
Yeah,
then you can get a scholarship. Like
yeah.
if you're good at playing baseball or football or basketball or something, the school
Hmm.
will pay you to play. You play the sport.
Yeah.
But that's only a few
It,
people. Not
it's
everybody gets that deal.
yeah. That's all. And the others maybe they take like student
Well,
loans.
they get the student loans, but the student loans, those you've got to pay those back, and it's better to get a
Yeah.
grant. If you get a grant, then if you can get the grant, then you can. It doesn't cover everything, but you don't have to pay that back. Student loans
Yeah.
are, it depends what you're studying, so whatever.
So you have to be careful about it if you, for example, if you are, you
What's
know,
deferred? The student
you
loan
know,
is deferred until you
yeah,
graduate and find a job. You don't have to pay it back until you graduate and find a job.
yeah. And if you graduate in something that is not, requested in the jobs,
Demand,
market,
demand,
so
yeah.
I don't know if you get, yeah, there is no demand for that specific, field, so it's gonna be hard for you to just have a job and pay. You can go to work in a restaurant and you have a lot of debts
Pay
to
back, yeah,
pay.
right.
It's
So
gonna
the
be hard
trade schools,
pay for
they have the trade
students.
schools too. The trade schools actually are probably better if a person wanted, to start doing something and working. The trade school would be a good thing to get into, I think. So
Hmm.
you can learn some trade, like how you can, be a carpenter or something, or plumber or whatever. Those things.
Yeah, that's is perfect, I
If
think,
you, well, if you can
because
do that, if you have that kind of,
everyone need a plumber, everyone
yeah,
needs,
yeah,
we all
everybody,
need, this
yeah,
kind of
electrician.
services.
I mean, with all the building
Electrician,
codes they have
yeah.
now, you need people to do all that kind of work. So, and then if a person got that kind of trade going, if a person was
Hmm.
really, if you were really enthusiastic or eager about it, you could do the trade school. Some of
Hmm.
those trade schools are only 2 years, right? You get the trade school, and then you find a job in the trade. Then you
Yeah,
could go to a university after,
yes.
and pay for it.
Yeah, it's the same for me, I go train school they call it.
Trade,
I don't know
trade,
because
T
it's
R
like
A D E,
train.
trade.
Yeah, train school. So I took my diploma for 2 years. I
Oh,
studied.
they have
It's
all
like
kinds of courses.
I'm a specialist.
Programming, computer
Yeah, I'm a
programming.
specialist
They have all
technician.
kinds of courses. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just studied for 2 years. Then I start working for a company, and I can go back to university if I want.
Yeah. Yeah, the trade school is you can probably find a job because you have some skill the trade
Hmm.
schools will they only the classes that they teach or the courses they teach are
Hmm.
what people need. They're not going to teach you something you don't need.
Yeah.
But the university, you could take a course in literature. I mean, where are you going to work doing? Yeah, the
Hmm.
only place you're going to get a job there is probably I don't know, probably teaching. That's probably you have to wait for
Yeah.
somebody to retire before you get a job or or I
Yeah.
don't know. There are jobs for those degrees, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's nice. I think to go to that kind of schools and learn about something that is, you know, more valuable in the, job markets
Demand, yeah,
because you can see and you can think about something and just choose to learn about it. Then you're gonna find a job, you know.
yeah. I think any of those jobs would be good. I think even engineering, if you got into engineering, that's a good trade
Hmm.
because you can do a lot of different things with engineering. So building or like making products,
Yeah, there are
designing.
many
There's a lot of
different.
different companies
Hmm.
that make products, cars and all kinds of products. So I need
Hmm.
engineers.
Yeah, so the person should be like, very very picky when it comes to choose something to learn about and a path, a career because it's really hard. Sometimes it can be stressful.
Yeah, I think so. Well, a lot of people don't know what they want, so they do different things, and then sometimes it's just by accident they
Hmm.
find something that they like to do, and then they do it. It
Hmm.
depends.
And how did why did you choose this career of yours, teaching, like language, English instructor? What is the difference between like uh, I went into your profile and I find like English instructor, not English teacher. Is there any
No, it's
difference
the
between the
same
two?
thing. I think it's the same thing. Maybe just talk,
Yeah.
like I teach English, but I teach because when I was in Japan, I taught different kinds of classes. I had some classes at a university, and there was those students.
Mm-hmm.
I taught people. Most of the students that I taught, well, I shouldn't say they could all speak English, but they had a exposure to English, so they could read and
Mm-hmm.
write and speak, and so they're basically just improving what they already know. And I taught a lot of business
Mm-hmm.
people. That's mainly what I did. And then we had different
Business.
courses. There were
Yeah, in companies,
a
I
lot of
think.
different courses that
Mm-hmm.
people could take, right? Sometimes the classes were already prepared. I just went in and just started teaching it. So yeah, and
Mm-hmm. So are people in Japan like open to talk, foreign languages like English? Let's take as an example English. Is it for like, for a Japanese person? Is he like open to speak a foreign language or just learn it? Is it easy for them or it's hard?
I
I don't
think
know.
they lowered the year. I think they used to start in high school, and I think they lowered it. It's like fifth grade or sixth grade now. So they start earlier.
Hmm.
And then some parents send
Hmm.
their kids to some language when they're young,
Private.
or like
Hmm.
even like 1 year old or something. And 2 years old, they're sending their kids. I mean, they're 2 years old. How are they going to learn how to speak English?
Yeah.
And I think it's just like, or
Yeah.
3 years old, like a kindergarten or something. Yeah, but I didn't teach kids that age, so I that's
Hmm.
probably good. Kids learn pretty quick when you're young, you learn pretty fast. The problem is when you're young, you can learn something. If
Yeah.
you don't use it, you forget it pretty quick too. So
Yeah.
and there
You have like to learn and practice at the same time, so it's there forever.
yeah, and I think there's an age. If you go past a certain age, then you retain the information. But if you say, for example, because I had a
Hmm.
friend. There was a friend. She was actually Japanese, but her parents
Hmm.
divorced, and then her
Hmm.
husband or her dad stayed in Japan, and she was with her. She had a brother, I think, a brother and her mom. They moved to Hawaii, and they lived on the Big
Mm-hmm.
Island in Hawaii.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
And so when she was 5, she was 5 years old when they moved to
Yeah.
Hawaii, and then she grew up in Hawaii, going to school there, and spent her whole. And then she ended up in Japan, but she couldn't speak Japanese. She
She
could
couldn't
speak a little
speak
bit, because her
Japanese.
mother
Oh
was
my, that's
Japanese, so
weird.
but her mother was speaking English, so she could speak a little bit. And kids, they tend to speak the language their peers, classmates and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So but
Yeah.
there's a Japanese influence in Hawaii too. So there are people there that can speak Japanese. So a lot of Japanese in Hawaii. There's a presence there.
Yeah.
But anyway, she ended up going to living in Japan. She lived there for quite a while, I think 10 years or something,
Yeah.
and studied the language. And then she moved back to Hawaii. She's in California now, I think.
Mm,
Yeah.
nice. I think it took her like, a lot of time to just recover,
Right, because
recover the language to get
because you
it back.
forget, if you like from 5, she probably was speaking Japanese when she was 5 years old, and but not English at all, right? But then when she moved
Mm-hmm.
there, she started speaking English, and all the Japanese you just kind of forget it all. I don't think she remembered any of it. She said
Yeah.
so. Yeah. But then I think at the age, there's certain age too. The older you are, you get to a point where you have to study more, and memorizing, and I think it's like
Yeah.
12, 13,
Yeah.
something like that. I think once you get past that age, the whole, your mouth's formed to speak the other language, so pronunciation becomes
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, it becomes difficult for adults, especially for, if you want to learn like a new language and you are an adult, it's kind of hard for you to get to that good
Yeah,
pronunciation
there's
level,
such
I
the
think.
nuance is so slight. Every little thing you in your mouth affects the sound or the pronunciation. So,
Hmm.
and to get it, that's why people have accents, right? So you sound like you have a French accent.
Yeah. Yes, Morocco, French
Yeah,
is
yeah.
common here
I can
in
hear a little
Morocco,
French
so
come out sometimes. It sounds like French.
yeah, I'm trying to hide it, but it didn't work.
I can hear you.
It's a
Yeah,
mix. It's a mix, between
French,
Arabic and French
right?
and English. So it's like a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
combination.
Combination
Yeah.
together. Yeah. Well, that's okay. I don't think the
It's
accent
okay.
is so important. I
Yeah.
think as long as people can understand what you're saying, that's the important part.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think to be clear, people should seek to be clear, not, to be perfect when
yeah,
it
don't
comes
worry
to
about
speaking.
accents. Just if you can,
Hmm.
if you're speaking to someone, that's why I always tell people, a lot of people ask me they try to say, oh, how do I get a British accent? And I'm like, just forget it. just just just
Just
speak
forget it.
clearly.
Yes. Just
Yeah,
speak.
yeah,
Yeah.
just try to speak clearly and you'll be fine. Have your own accent, your own
Yeah.
style. It'll be your own, you know,
Yeah. Be yourself.
yeah,
Yeah. Just talk,
right.
as you should too. It's okay. It's nice. We are trying. We are doing our
Well, unless
best.
you want to
So
be an actor or something, and the actors play different roles, they have to
yeah.
have some accent maybe or something. Then maybe, yeah, sure, then try to do it. But
Hmm.
otherwise, there's really no point, I think, learning accents,
Yeah.
because it doesn't give you there's no benefit in
Yeah.
it,
Just
really.
to,
I mean,
yeah. Hmm.
so yeah.
Yeah. Maybe just to look, to look good.
But if you
You
don't do
know.
it, if you don't do it well, it sounds fake. If you can't do it well, it
Yes,
sounds like a
for
fake
sure.
accent.
Because some people are trying to create, a different voice
Yeah,
than
their own
their
voice.
own. And it sounded fake. If you hear someone talking like that, you can feel like it's fake, and you say this guy is not,
Right. Yeah, you can tell, and
it's
yeah, you
just
can hear
faking
it.
it.
So yeah. It depends,
Hmm.
because I know a lot of Japanese people, they can't tell the difference between British English and American English sometimes. They have to,
Hmm.
when they study and speak a little bit, they can, but in the beginning they can't tell the difference. They have no
Hmm.
idea. And I guess I can understand that,
Yeah,
because
I
there's
see.
some accents, you hear something, you don't know what accent is that? I don't know. Eastern Europe,
I see. I think we're
almost
about
done,
done.
almost done. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to say goodbye, and thank
Well,
you
you're
for
welcome.
this great
You're welcome. It
conversation.
was nice talking with you
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Thank you very
En-
much, and maybe, yeah, see
Enjoy,
you
enjoy,
later.
Enjoy the
Take
day.
care. Yeah. Yeah. It's the end of the day, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
okay.
go to
Enjoy
sleep.
the
So
evening.
you enjoy the day. Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.
See you.